Welcome to Have I Told Y'all This? My name is Nelda Spell Mitchell, and this story is about a trip to Jackson, Mississippi in 1943 when I was a child. Jackson is the capital city of Mississippi. It's 65 miles there, 65 miles back. But when this happened, it was just like it was another world because we didn't get to go there. But they're going this time, the 1943 trip to Jackson. It took a month or more of talk to plan the trip to Jackson. We were all going with Auntie Bibb on a shopping trip, and I'll have to stop there and explain. Our daddy's youngest sister was named Vivian, but her nickname was Bibb, B-I-B. And we didn't say auntie, we said auntie, auntie. I don't know why, but we did. But in saying it over and over as much as we did, that auntie got shortened to auntie, We left off the A, Auntie Bibb. But anyway, I'll try to say auntie. We were going with her on a shopping trip. She was the richest person we knew. Everyone said she was beautiful. She was our daddy's baby sister, but was so much more than that. She was our idol because she always included us in the events of her life. Now our adrenal glands were stimulated by all the exciting talk about going to Jackson. Auntie Bibb wanted to go shop at Kennington's and the other big fancy clothing stores. She wanted some nice store-bought ready-made dresses, suits, slips, panties, bras, and above all, she hoped to find some nylon stockings before school started. She and Uncle Willard lived in Mobile. He was a school principal and she taught 5th grade. Uncle Willard had to enlist in the army and was off helping Uncle Sam to fight the Japs and Germans. Auntie Bibb was spending the summer with her widowed father, our Grandpa Spell, who lived just up the hill from us. Mother had more than 5 senses, and her 7th or 8th one knew that she could get routine chores done quicker and more cheerfully if we had the expectation of a major treat dangling ahead of us. Soon after the talk began, preparations were started for the 65-mile, one-day trip. The house was cleaned first. The mattresses were flopped across the lot fence to sun. Windows were washed inside and out. Curtains and dresser scarves were washed, starched, and stretched on the drying frames. Quilts and bedspreads all got their summer washing. The floors were scrubbed and the fireplace was cleaned out. The refrigerator was defrosted. The wood cook stove was scrubbed and the wood box was cleaned. Outside, the yard was swept. The flower beds were cleaned. New straw was put in the hen nest in the chicken house. The toilet was swept out and the pit was limed. The garden was foraged daily for whatever was in season. The tomato vines were tied up. Peaches and apples were sliced and dried, and figs. Oh, I mustn't forget the figs. That was one of my jobs, to pick the figs. Since I was light, I could climb like a squirrel out on the limbs. The figs had to be picked early in the morning before the jaybirds got up. The dewy, fuzzy fig leaves left an itchy residue on my arms, neck, legs that would worry me all day long. Oh, I hated it. Worse than getting cornmeal under my fingernails when Mother made me make cornbread for dinner. The fences were all checked and patched. The cows and calves were separated. The bull was locked inside a barn stall. The sweet potato vines were clipped and set out. A sack of shelled corn was carried to the mill and made into grits and cornmeal. The chores increased as the departure date neared, but we made sure that we each had our clothes starched and ironed and our Sunday shoes polished. Well, Sunday shoes is all we had. We went barefoot all summer except for the few hours spent at church each week. The day before the trip, a frying-sized chicken got its neck wrung and was dressed. The apple tree was shook and tarts were made. Peas were picked and shelled. We each got an overall tub bath in the backyard and our heads scrubbed in the kitchen sink. Everyone woke up voluntarily the day of the trip. The chicken was fried and packed in a big dishpan with a boiler of peas and several big ripe tomatoes, apple tarts, plates, glasses, forks, and a sharp knife to slice the tomatoes, salt, pepper, and cornbread sticks. A jug of cold milk was wrapped in newspaper and a fertilized sack towel, and this would be our lunch. By 8 o'clock, we were all ready to go to load up. We must have looked like a bunch of hillbillies when we piled in and on Daddy's old 1937 green Chevrolet pickup. We were having to go in it because World War II had created a severe shortage of tires and gasoline, and they were rationed. The government issued extra ration stamps to owners of farm vehicles, so Daddy had enough stamps for gasoline and tires for the truck. Daddy had ridden with Mr. Mayor and Lee to their jobs in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, and left the pickup with us on this particular week. Usually he and Mr. Lee went in the truck. This is how they would get gasoline and tires to come back and forth. Auntie Bibb had a shiny new maroon Ford sedan car, but it was only driven to church while she was here for the summer, so the tires wouldn't wear out and her gasoline ration stamps wouldn't be used up. It seemed a pity to have to use it after all. After each trip to church, whoever of us children went home with her would have to help rub the dust off the car with soft fertilized sack rags. If cars passed during the week spraying dust showers, she would send one of us with a rag to dust off the car. Since everyone else that we knew looked like us, embarrassment was not even thought of as we took our places. Auntie Bibb drove. Mother, my oldest sister Oline, rode in the cab with her. Loose hay had been put in the body of the truck and covered with a ragged quilt. Pa Spell sat in the middle of the truck in a rocking chair, surrounded by Vivian, Eve, Jane, and me. The food pan, the milk jug, and a jug of water. My brother Joe had stayed home to plow. I was 4, but I remember this trip, even snitching bites of apple tarts. I don't remember what Vivian, Eve, and Jane thought about that day, but it seemed that they were spatting at each other all the way there and back. They must have put on a real good show, for Pa Spell laughed a lot. He was nearly 80, but had not gotten old and cranky. Nothing bothered him except the hot sun. He had forgotten his hat, and his bald head was frying. He tied a knot in each corner of his white handkerchief, making a cap, which he wore all day. Oh, goodness. Oh, we were thrilled to drive down the streets of Jackson, the capital city, driving down oh, gracious. These streets were so slick and smooth and quite a contrast to corduroy dirt roads. The side flaps on the truck's hood didn't even rattle much. We parked in the shade of one of the big buildings right on Capitol Street. Pa sat in his rocker and made friends with all who stopped by to pass the time of day. The rest of us formed a long tail behind Auntie Bibb. We followed her from store to store. She bought what we thought was a sinful amount of clothes. Mother said that she could have clothed her entire family for 5 years with the amount of money and the Sears catalog. I have no remembrance of drooling over anything or eating my heart out for something for myself. We were getting the trip, and that was enough. After all, children were seen and not heard in 1943. Also, Mother had told us time and time again that we were big enough that your wants won't hurt you. We ate our lunch at the zoo. Oh, it was the same fare that we had had many a time, but it had never tasted as good. The elephants and monkeys took priority in my memory. I did beg for a monkey. I was fascinated with the miniature village on their island there at the zoo. I had to be dragged away when it was all too soon to go home. We'd have to get home before dark to do the farm chores. There was no picture made of us, but along about that same time, Dennis got to go to the zoo, and his mother took this picture of him by the elephants. There, that's Dennis Mitchell, my husband, when he was a little fella, and he got to go to the zoo as well.